Welcome back to another episode of The Only Playbook, a virtual episode again, episode 30. We're recapping week 15. It is the week of Christmas, such festive holiday spirit, yet so many people just continue to get hurt and get sick and just cost people fantasy playoffs. I'm Sweetcar here. I got Chovich to shout. How are we doing, guys?
COVID's everywhere. It's infiltrated the base and found the supplier. So not only is fantasy football screwed, everybody's travel plans are probably going to get canceled. A lot of bad things are going to come from this for the next couple of weeks, but hopefully everybody can still enjoy their holidays.
Yeah, not much for me to say, but that I'm just disappointed in my fantasy week. This week, it's just been one of those weeks where I don't know what's going on with players. I don't know what's going on with teams. The guys that you did well with to move forward with the season and get you to the playoffs are just not performing in the first week of playoff. And
one of those guys performed for you, but you decided not to start him.
You talking about Brandon Cooks?
Yeah.
That was a tough one for me to kind of go into. Yeah, hindsight's 2020. I wish I'd have started him. He had a nice 25 points on my bench, but it is what it is. I still have Dalvin Cook, so hopefully he can do something for me tonight.
Yeah, that's true. It's never over till it's over.
Right.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. The only good thing for you going is that you're playing me. My team has also been just as piss poor. So, we both have a chance. Either way, I don't even feel good if I win because I feel like my team is just disaster waiting to happen. But we'll get into all of that.
Yeah. The silver lining here is that like 2 out of 3 people on this podcast will be in the playoffs next round.
Yeah, we'll be in the semifinals.
Unless Nick Chubb goes off in the second half. But
probably not.
Anyways.
I like those things.
Thanks, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. I know, it's the holiday season. People maybe are not listening to podcasts as much because they're too busy hanging out with their family. But, we're still out here. We're still getting it done. Social media, we've talked about it. If you enjoy our content, please like, subscribe, YouTube. We're on every platform possible: Spotify, Apple, Google, Anchor, TikTok at The Only Playbook, Instagram at The Only Playbook, where we just recently posted a nice little picture 15 weeks in of the 3 of us. So check us out there, and obviously at Twitter at Only Playbook. Turn your notifications on because we update you guys with injuries and fantasy relevant stuff, everything that you would need to know heading into Sundays. So obviously, first things first, we kick every episode off to show with the injury report. Give us the rundown.
Yeah, so I'm going to make this short and sweet because not much has changed since yesterday, and a lot of the people haven't even done their MRIs. So Sunday to Monday is always tough as far as knowing exactly what's going on. So stay tuned on our Twitter page, and especially on this week's whenever we do our next episode this week. I feel like that one's going to be super important when it comes to injuries because we're in the playoffs. There's 2 games left until you win the championship. So anyways, we can start off by talking about hold on one second. I guess it didn't translate. I got to look at my okay. I got to get rid of the Nick Chubb for a second. Okay. So first off, Chris Godwin, they thought it wasn't that big of a deal. Stephania Bell this morning was like, it looks like an MCL sprain. He should be back. News came in. He's got an ACL tear. He's out for season. Mike Evans is week to week with his hamstring. So, that's always tough for an older receiver. So that's iffy. That's scary right now at this moment. And then Fournette has an injury as well. We don't know exactly how serious his injury is. But again, it's Monday. There's not much information. We just know that these players are hurt, and they're going to be two out of these 3 are definitely not going to be playing next week. So that's as far as it goes for the Buccaneers. But good thing, Antonio Brown and Gang are coming back from injury, and Perriman should be able to play next week. So those 2 guys should be jumping into those 2's roles immediately. Teddy concussion looks like it's not as serious as it looked. It looked really bad. Mainly because he was face down, right? Like anytime there's anybody's unconscious, you want to put him on a board so you can keep their spine straight, but they had trouble doing that because he was face down rather than face up. You couldn't just slide it in there. So that took forever. But good thing he's out. He texted his coach this morning saying I'm out of the hospital and all that stuff, and he can move all his body parts. So everything's fine, except Drew Lock is going to be starting the next game. Daniel Jones, he shut down for the season with his neck injury. Neck injuries are always tough. That was always going to be suspect because he's a running quarterback. He's going to get hit a lot. So I was always concerned, but now they've shut him down for the season. AJ Brown is designated to return immediately. He's fully healthy, so he's going to be back and probably starting in your fantasy lineups. Jalen Hurts is not on the injury list since that ankle sprain, so he should be good to go. Joe Mixon experienced an ankle sprain during that game. So P. Ryan should definitely be on your radars at this point in the season. Sterling Shepard, he's got a torn Achilles, out for season. Giants receivers,
same story, different day.
Yeah, same story, different day, same person, different person. It doesn't matter. Someone's hurt always. But keep in mind, Tony may be coming back this week, or there's going to be a lot of mix-ups there. But, if one of them is fully healthy, it might be worth it because they're going to be playing in garbage time, right? And a lot of these main stars, some people have Godwin and Mike Evans on their team. So, there's going to be a lot of holes to fill. And one of those Giants receivers, depending on the matchups, we'll talk about that on our next review episode. Julio Jones, I just talked about AJ Brown, but Julio Jones is pretty much as useful as a succulent on your window. He's just going to be sitting there on your depth chart, just doing nothing. So it's time to release him, time to get rid of him. There's really no reason to have Julio Jones right now. Rondell Moore also experienced an ankle sprain. This is important because now Christian Kirk and AJ Green are the only people that are left. Someone's going to have to get those short passes because AJ Green's not going to be getting those. He's more of a red zone threat / deep 14, 15-yard pass guy. Christian Kirk is that home run hitter and the sideline guy. So someone's going to have to step up and take this Rondell Moore role. I don't know who it's going to be, and I don't know how this offense is going to run, but it's going to be interesting to see how they adjust to that. And then Freiermuth apparently drove his family home after that game. So he had a big concussion, and we were all worried. But he was able to drive his family home, so his cognitive tests probably all passed, and he should be good to go by next week, I assume. And now the COVID list. It's very short. I'm not going to go too much into this, but main people as of today, Travis Kelce is now on the COVID list, but he's vaccinated, so that's 5 days. Depending on if he tests positive or not, he should be able to play Sunday. Harrison Butker is also on that list. It's important because he's a big fantasy kicker, and I don't know if he's vaccinated or not, so we'll have to wait for reports on that one. Jared Goff's on the COVID list. Jamal Williams now off of the COVID list. So that kind of hinders Reynolds' little, surge, if you will. But I think they're still going to go with the youngster. They want to see what he's got, right? They just signed him. So there's that. Kendrick Bourne is now on the COVID list, which he has been their most reliable receiver. They've needed receiver help this whole season, and he's stood up when Myers has not been able to do that. So that's going to be a big hit for the Patriots. Jalen Waddle and Phillip Lindsay are both off the COVID list now, and they should be jumping right back. At least Waddle will be jumping right back into fantasy owners' lineups. Lindsay just makes that messier. But that's what we got as far as injuries and COVID stuff today.
Yeah, lots on the horizon, though, even because COVID information is coming out pretty much every hour, every day. Right. Things are getting updated. Turn on your notifications at Only Playbook on Twitter. That's where we'll get you up to the minutes in injury information. So appreciate that. We had a lot of games that have already happened, even though there's still 4 games that are, 3 games yet to happen, 1 game that's currently going on. But let's run through the games that happened on Saturday and Sunday. First game, the only game that ended up happening on Saturday because of the changes in scheduling. The Patriots were at the Colts this week in a big marquee matchup. Colts came in at 2.5-point favorites. Wondering, I was at least wondering why that line was playing out that way. Under 45.5 was the line, but the final was 27-17. Colts win at home by 10. They're now 8-6, and the Patriots dropped to 9-5. Colts covered the 2.5-point spread, and the under comes in another week. And boy, Jonathan Taylor, what a great performance in the playoffs for whoever has him.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor came in clutch at the fourth quarter when you think that the Patriots going to come back and potentially tie the game. But, they were stopping Jonathan Taylor all up until that point. It seemed like he hadn't gotten to the red zone. You think he had total of 88 yards. And then he breaks free. I think it was 3rd and 7 or something like that, and gets that touchdown. It's funny. He's looking back, and I think he's even surprised that there was no one around him. But I think the key to the victory for the Colts was also their defense, right? Being able to stop Mac Jones, being able to stop Stevenson, not really get their the Patriots running game to be established and just limiting them to score any points and score many points in the first half. And that just kind of set them up for the win.
Yeah, this game went exactly how I expected it. As we were talking about in the preview game, I was like, the Colts are not going to stop running the ball. That's what's been working the whole time. You don't tell Derrick Henry to stop running the ball. You don't tell Jonathan Taylor to stop running the ball. And I guess Bill Belichick tried a game plan towards this, but when you run the ball that many times, there will be that one moment where there's clearing, right? When you have good running backs, they don't just get, stopped every play. He wasn't really stopped all game. I wouldn't say he was stopped because when you're near 100 yards, I don't really consider that being stopped. He was still getting like 6 or 7 yards, some runs. But it was just like consistent force. They were just still going up the middle. They rarely went down the sides. They just kept pounding it and found that one hole. And the Patriots, this was my worry. My worry is they don't have a throwing attack. They just don't. And I don't know how long you're going to try using this Mac Jones experiment for these quick passes where you're going to come across some teams that have good defenses and you're going to have to throw the ball. So that's where the Patriots have been, kind of not too strong at all season. And we kind of saw that, how the Colts just handled them. But, still, that being said, their division is still going to be very winnable. Bills also have their own weaknesses. Dolphins are climbing for a playoff spot. Jets don't matter. So the Patriots will handsomely make it to the playoffs. We just got to see if they improve on this passing attack with now Bourne being out for a while.
Yeah, anytime we had yet to see really much of the Patriots being forced to throw. They were always able to run their game plan most of the season, and they ran it effectively. And this week, personally, me and Shovit, we both were jumping at the bit of Ramondre Stevenson coming in and stepping in for Damian Harris, who was out. And in the past this season, he stepped in nicely. There hasn't really been much of a void, and they were successfully able to run the ball in the past. But this game, the Colts did a good job stopping the run. And once the Colts did a good job stopping the run and slowly started to go up, that blocked punt that turned it into a 2-score game, that ultimately changed the landscape of the game in the sense that the Colts are now down the Patriots are now down 2 scores. And then all of a sudden, Mac Jones is having to throw more. The pass isn't complementing the run. They're being forced to pass. And then that's when he throws the interceptions. But, tough place to play at Indianapolis. The Colts defense is not bad. They've had a good season, although there've been some ups and downs. So it's tough to see Mac Jones struggle, but this is the recipe, right? If you go up early on the Patriots and you force a rookie quarterback to beat you, especially on the road, if he has to play on the road in the playoffs, it's going to be tough. So, big experience game for Mac Jones, something he hasn't gone through. So let's see how he tackles the adversity, moving forward. They play the Bills next week, so it doesn't really get any easier for them. And the Colts play the Cardinals. So both teams, big matchups, heading right into back-to-back big matchups. So a lot of good football to be seen there. Jumping over to Buffalo, where the Bills were hosting the Panthers this week, needing a victory, needing to bounce back, needing to win the games that they're supposed to win. And the Bills finally actually took care of business in a game, 31-14 final at home. They cover the 12-point spread, over 44.5 hits. Another tough game for the Panthers offense, really not a ton of showing. Cam Newton made some really, really bad throws. And, although Josh Allen did not play perfect football, as we've seen time and time again, the defense and everything else around him did enough to secure the victory.
Yeah, the defense did, and also Singletary had a pretty good game where he gets into the end zone. And so they ran the ball well. So some of the things that we talked about was like, Josh Allen's the only running person that's running on that team. And it seems like they were giving the ball to Singletary more. And so that's kind of what allowed them to be a little bit more successful. But the Panthers are just a bad team. I feel like they're just, they've got a decent defense, but you mentioned it, there's like really nothing going on in the offense. We haven't seen anything from DJ Moore like we expected. And so the Bills were able to get the job done. I think Gabriel Davis gets 2 touchdowns, maybe solidifying that wide receiver 2 role outside of Sanders and Cole Beasley.
Diggs.
And Diggs.
Yeah. Singletary, I want to touch on that because, it's there. No running back since 2018 has had over 22 carries for the Bills, and that was the first time somebody had that. But it's not, like you don't have to feel bad if you saw Singletary and you didn't pick him up, and this isn't one of those situations where you should be beating yourself up. However, they did mention that they are going to be increasing Singletary's carries. So take it how you want to take it, because it seems like they just go with the hot hand, right? There was a Moss moment this year. There was a Singletary moment first, he lost that moment to Moss, and Moss lost that to Breida, and now we're back with Singletary. I would just abort mission here. There's nothing to look at. Move on. Find another place to go unless you're really desperate, because this is where, like, at this point in the season, you want consistent players. You don't want hit or miss players at all. So that being said, that's what I want to say as far as Singletary goes. As far as the Panthers go, yeah, it was a good attempt. They tried their hardest. They tried to go and get probably one of the best cornerbacks in the league. They had this like little window of opportunity, but it was false hope. Unfortunately, the quarterback play is just not good enough. No matter who is back there, it's just not going to work. It was a CMC-centered offense, and without CMC there, they're just collapsing. They don't know what to do. So I kind of feel for this team because it's always nice to see somebody try their hardest, going to get the right players, refilling injured holes. They did all that. It just wasn't good enough. They're not a good enough team to make it to the playoffs. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough for them at this point. They're 5-9. Playoffs are pretty much out of the question. Like you said, they have quarterback questions heading into next season, right? I mean, they thought they could light the fire for this little window of opportunity by bringing back Cam, running a similar offense that's been successful for them in the past. And, in a very short time, early on, it seemed like Cam was going to get that. But I think they had a reality check relatively quickly that even though he can still run, like he used to be able to, his arm's just not there. I mean, that fourth down screen pass was one of the worst passes I've ever seen. Yeah.
No, that was definitely worse than the other pass we were comparing it to, because I rewatched both passes and I was like, okay, Cam's pass is definitely worse.
Yeah, absolutely. Fourth down and 2, and you're throwing a screen pass out there and you throw it straight into the floor, 2 yards behind him. At that point, if you were trying to not throw the interception because they had it right, it's one thing, but it's also fourth down. So you also have to be smart enough to try to run or do something else. So just incredibly infuriating if I'm a Panthers fan just watching that type of quarterback play, even though there's a tremendous bias from Panthers fans, loving Cam Newton. So it's one of those things where it was fun while it lasted. He was fantastic, but let's rip that Band-Aid off. Yeah. Let's move forward. Because I mean, again, the Panthers need to figure out a quarterback situation for next year. And they have a good enough defense that they can build upon, so JC Horn will come back from injury next year, and he was a rookie this year. So still optimism on that side. Yeah, and then the Bills got a much needed victory.
And it's not like, Gilmore's going anywhere. They're going to have Gilmore and JC Horn now. So that's going to be very, very lethal. One thing I got to add, the Panthers are 0-19 in games when they allow 22 or more points since beginning of last year. Only Jacksonville has, Jacksonville's 0-25 when they allow more than 22 points. So they're next. Whenever you talk about any team with Jacksonville in the same conversation, something's wrong there. You got to fix that. And then on the other end, the Bills, on their last 15 wins, they've won by more than 10 points in all 15 of those wins, and that's the longest streak in NFL history. So when they win, they win outright. When they lose, they suck. But we also know that's because they've been playing all these really crappy teams. The Bills are just getting away with playing bad teams a lot this year.
Yeah. They're what we like to call a borderline fake news.
Yeah. We need a new for that too. We need to.
Yeah.
It's the Fugazi news.
They're Fugazi. The Bills are going to be at the Patriots next week, so it's going to be a battle of who's really the Fugazi and who's actually for real. The Panthers going to have to play the Buccaneers next week, so it's not going to get easier for them. Let's take it to Detroit, guys, where I'm pretty sure the entire world thought that the Cardinals were going to come in here and win this game easily. I even told Chauvin, I'm like, yeah, I usually don't like laying the points, but the Cardinals at 12.5 on the road in Detroit, lock it in, Chauvin. God, I'm an idiot. The Cardinals actually lose on the road, 30-12 final. Detroit doesn't just win. They don't actually squeak away with a victory. They dominate this game, guys. They cover a 12.5 point dog spread and literally cover the spread against the team. You could have bet the reverse line, which is an option every single game. And the Detroit Lions at plus or minus 12.5 was probably plus 1,000, something ridiculous. So Detroit wins this game by 18 points. The under 47.5 hits. I mean, I'm at a loss for words. I mean, I get the Vikings loss, right? There's divisional game. Detroit still hadn't won a game yet, so they were playing for something. But for the Cardinals, a team that's supposed to be, one of the best, if not the best team in the NFC, comes into Detroit in a game that they absolutely need to have, and they get just blown out. What's the story here? How does something like this happen?
Yeah, I mean, maybe Kyler Murray is just not back to where he needs to be from due to the injury, right? They also lost DeAndre Hopkins, which is a big loss for the Cardinals. And you've seen guys like Russell Wilson when they come back, they're not as fully ready to be back on and get I guess consistent as they were. And Murray was rushed, and the Lions just played a good game on both sides of the field that just didn't allow the Cardinals to get consistent. And Jared Goff has a pretty decent game, 21 for 26, 216 yards, 3 touchdowns. Like the Lions just did everything right to be able to beat the Cardinals, and the Cardinals just don't look as explosive as it did in the beginning of the season. And I think part of it is due to Kyler Murray just not being ready yet.
Yeah. There's a lot of fingers to be pointed here. But I think the Lions just played the best game of the season for them. They just played outright perfect. Another thing of note I realized after I saw the game was that Jared Goff has the Cardinals number. So the Lions, first of all, the Lions are 4-0 in their last 5 games against the Cardinals. And Jared Goff is 8-1 in his career versus the Cardinals with 7 straight wins. So I found that kind of funny to see that a lot later, because I should have seen this in the preview games. But yeah, just fun little stat for all these pathetic teams. You kind of want to cheer them on. And I know we were like, yeah, let's go Lions, let's beat the Cardinals. And they pulled this off. Hopefully they can win a couple more.
Yeah, the Lions winning, winning out will make the Vikings fans feel a lot better. So nonetheless, this is a big victory for Detroit, right? I mean, they had nothing to play for. In essence, they should be wanting to tank, and they come in here at home and dominate a team that's, was the number 2 seed in the NFC coming into this game. So it was a very impressive show, but I think you're right. I don't know if it's Kyler's not fully healthy yet, or missing DeAndre Hopkins is making that big of an impact in their offense, which I truly don't believe should, but maybe it does. But there's something definitely does look off. I mean, some of Kyler's throws were very off. His interception was a really bad throw. He had 18 incompletions, and that's not very efficient. So I don't know. And then the other thing was he only ran it 4 times for 3 yards. And then that really brings a question mark. Is he not healthy? Because the dude loves to scramble. That's like the biggest difference maker in his game. And so interesting to see. I mean, they play the Colts next week. We talked about it. That's a big matchup. So Kyler needs to get right if they want to win that game. And the Lions have another winnable game next week. They're at the Atlanta Falcons. So let's see what the Lions can do there. The next game on the board was the Dolphins. They were hosting the Jets. Dolphins came into this one 6-7, Jets 2-11. Shobit, your survivor pick was the Dolphins, and the Jets took an early lead. It was like 14-0, I believe. But I don't think any of us were really worried. The Jets were, doomed to give that lead away. And the Dolphins did just that. They came back, win this game 31-24 final. The Jets do cover the plus 9.5 point spread. The over 41 just got smashed. Shobit, your survivor pick was the Dolphins, and you hit that. But another game where early on, it looked like the Jets were actually going to win this game, or they were playing a lot better, and Tua looked very inaccurate. But then what changed? I mean, it looked like a complete shift in the second half, and the Jets just went back to being the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. The Jets had where the offense was rolling in the first half, and then second half it just didn't do the same. Like they just kind of forgot what they did in the first half to make it work. But Duke Johnson comes out of nowhere, 107 yards. And 2 touchdowns. I had Myles Gaskin. I was so happy to start him this week, and I was like, the Jets' run defense sucks, and all that, and it does. But Miami Dolphins just don't want to give the ball to Gaskin, and maybe it's because he's coming back from injury, or he's still kind of sick.
There's no excuses at this point. They just don't like him. They just don't like him.
Ask for a trade. Ask for a trade, Gaskin.
Demand a trade, bro.
Yeah, and the biggest thing about this game was, did you guys see the offensive lineman get a touchdown there? Christian Wilkins.
He did the spin a Rooney.
And he goes he goes into the stands and climbs up and straight up jump. Poor fans. Like, that's a 200-300 pound dude just like coming onto your lap,
falling on top of you.
On top of you. So I feel for the fans, but yeah, the Dolphins able to get the job done. Tua comes back, and I forget who he's threw the touchdown. I think the Wilkins touchdown was the one that led them to get the lead. And then Devontae Parker, no Waddle, so Devontae Parker also does well. I think he had 4 receptions. He had a touchdown, 68 yards, something like that. I don't think that's going to continue with Waddle coming back next week. It might go down a little bit because he had 8 targets this game. But all in all, yeah, Dolphins played a solid game in the second half to come back and win the game.
Yeah, the Jets offense just not good. Go ahead, Shep.
Oh yeah, no, I was just gonna say the Dolphins are 19-0 in games when scoring over 30 points. They're the only team without a loss in such games since 2015. Because I know like Vikings score 30 points, like, just with a blink of an eye, but we get a lot of those turned into losses as well. But yeah, it's nice to see Dolphins are 19-0 and they score over 30 points. And now they've won 6 straight games and they've allowed fewer than 399 total yards in 9 straight games. So, but yeah, they're on the same spectrum as their other counterparts in the division. The Bills, they're playing a lot of easy teams. The Bills are sometimes losing those games versus the Dolphins are on a rampage here. They're taking advantage of their schedule. So, yeah, that's what I see out of this. From fantasy perspective, Waddle comes back this week. So I would assume you don't expect Parker to go off like that. But then he didn't really go off. He had a pretty good game. So you can see both Waddle and Parker succeed in this offense. I think this helps out Tua a lot if they're both playing at the same time.
Yeah, that would make the offense actually dynamic. What happened? Chubb scored?
Yeah, after a 25-yard run. That's okay. It's all good. But yeah. So that's I don't even know what I was saying. I got flustered.
Yeah, you're not going to lose. There's no way. He's the only guy he has left.
That's not what I'm not worried about that. It's every moment at a time for me.
Okay. Well, fair enough. But yeah, so the Dolphins take care of business. They have the Saints next week. They got to travel to New Orleans to take that game. So Saints had a big victory against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. We'll talk more about that. So that's not going to be an easy test for Miami, and we'll hopes to keep that 6-game win streak alive. The Jets and the Jags play each other next week. So I said Toilet Bowl this week, and this is a reincarnation of Toilet Bowl Part 2 next week. So stick around for the Jets and Jaguars. We thought the Texans Jags was going to be bad. Jets and Jags, I have no idea what the hell that's going to happen in that game. The next game on the board, the Cowboys traveled to New York to take on the Giants. My survivor pick was the Dallas Cowboys this week on the road. They take care of business, 21-6 final. Dallas covers the 10.5-point spread, under 44.5 covers. And it's just a weird trend with the Cowboys right now. They're just unimpressively winning games. So I just really don't know what to make of it. At the end of the day, it's the NFL. You need to win games, and they're doing that. But nothing about the Cowboys 21-6 game impressed me again. I mean, yeah, their defense was great, but you're playing against Mike Glennon and a bunch of backups. So, I don't know. What are you guys actually assessing or can take away from this game that, is worth a shit or means anything?
Yeah, well, so here's a funny thing that's going on in the Cowboys locker room right now. So the Dallas has a bet going on with the offense and the defense, and the offense has to score more touchdowns than the defense allows turnovers, right? Or it's touchdowns versus turnovers, and the defense is actually winning in that category right now. So the defense, there's more turnovers than touchdowns. So I think that will kind of that it's out public now. So I wonder if Dak Prescott and company will try to score more points because of that. They want to win the bet. But the storyline here is the Dallas defense, who forced 4 turnovers for 3 straight games. So yeah, the defense is just stepping up. Yeah, I understand it's against the Giants, but to do it 3 games in a row and be consistent like they've been, they're a threat with DeMarcus Lawrence leading that defense. This was the first game that Micah Parsons didn't have a sack in 4 or 5 games. So a full sack. So even without that, despite that, they were able to still limit the Giants to only 6 points. I say kudos to the defense, and that's what's going to help them get further in the playoffs.
So watching this game, I'm actually moving the Cowboys down 1 on my big rankings, because I think Mike Glennon didn't even throw for 100 yards. You can't really. They toyed with them for a while, right? They got the ball first, punted it. It was just. I expected more from the Cowboys, but I mean, like you said, a win's a win, and they won their typical fashion. Dak Prescott's playing very mediocre for the past month. It's a little worrisome because once you get closer to the playoffs, you got to play teams like Aaron Rodgers and gang, and I don't think you can play the way he's playing and win those type of games. But Tony Pollard has definitely taken over as far as the better backs there, and I still don't see them recognizing that. Zeke's still getting more carries, and he's got almost half the amount of yards per carry that Pollard does. So I don't know what they're doing there, but it's working. So whatever. And as far as receivers go, This is the CeeDee Lamb and Gallup show. I expected Amari Cooper to come out here and like take his role back, but Gallup's done a good job with the limited amount of passes they all get now for some reason. CeeDee Lamb's heavily targeted. So Schultz is probably the most reliable receiver that's even here now. Again, it might have been because they're playing the Giants and they don't really need to go deep and all that good stuff. But I did kind of want to see, after all these reports about how the Cowboys, Dak Prescott's not doing so well, the receivers aren't doing so well. I wanted to see them come back and just kind of take care of this game. But they didn't really do that as well as I expected them to do. But they still pulled off a win, a heavily driven win by their defense. And they also forced Saquon to fumble the ball for the first time in his career. So, yeah, the defense is playing lights out. I have Micah Parsons in my DP league, and he's been averaging me like 10 points a game. So he only gave me 0.5 points this week. I was going to make him my dud for the week, but it wasn't really going to make sense to like half the listeners. So I left that out. But yeah, Cowboys defense is just, they're riding off of this defense straight into the playoffs.
Yeah. And for them, they have a lot of divisional games left. They're taking on the football team next week, who all but have their playoff chances, on borderline at best. So the Giants taking on the Eagles. So a lot of divisional games for these teams, with the Giants not much to play for, but maybe trying to build something for next year. Eagles are still in it. Washington technically still in it. The Cowboys probably still hunting for that number 1 seed, because it's not out of the realm of possibility there. The next game on the board, the Titans travel to Pittsburgh, show it to take on your Steelers, and the Steelers win a wild one at home. 19-13 final. Pittsburgh was a pick'em pick, if you will, under 43 hit. Steelers now 7-6-1. The Titans dropped to 9-5. Ugly game, but the Steelers come away victorious.
It's such a Steelers fashion game. I mean, like all 7 wins for Pittsburgh have come by Pittsburgh. It's by less than 8 points. So it's one of these games where the offense isn't really reeling in, and they're not really performing in the first half. Kind of comes alive a little bit in the second half. But the storyline here is the defense. That Joe Hayden stop on 4th and 7 to seal the deal. I mean, that was on.
What's funny is that's how they got stopped in the Super Bowl too. At the one, at the 1
yard short. Yeah. Eddie George, or was it Steve McNair?
It was Dyson. It was Andre Dyson.
Yeah, Kevin Dyson.
Oh, yeah. Kevin Dyson. Okay. Dyson. Gotcha. Yeah. No, but Joe Hayden coming in with the crucial stop, and then so that was amazing. At first glance, you think that he gets a first down, but then you look at the replay; it's even like 1 yard back of the. It's not even. Inches.
I honestly didn't think he even got it at first glance.
Yeah, I didn't
immediately was like he did not get it, but no, dude, the Steelers defense stepped up big time. We gave that defense shit for all those holes that Dalvin Cook was running through last week, and I guess their run defense performed a lot better in the sense that the holes did not look like it was some freaking high school team running. They actually made Foreman and Hilliard work.
It was still bad,
but it just wasn't that bad. And that's all we needed, right? All we needed was you cannot just be standing there, is almost what the Dalvin Cook week was last week. And this week they were at least attempting things. So outside of the running, they did a good job with the passing. And so I just collectively, it was timely, right? That's the best way I can put it, is so much ugliness, but in very, very timely key spots, the Steelers stepped up.
Yeah, and that's been what they've been doing all year. They're not a good defense. They still allowed Foreman to have 108 rushing yards. So that's still happening. But the fact that, like you said, that's the best way to put it. Timely turnovers and stops to win the game. Just
quick thing I'm just gonna add. Yeah, turnovers was the name of the game here. Steelers had 168 total yards. Most people don't win games with 168 total yards, but they made those crucial stops, crucial, sacks, crucial turnovers. And the Steelers defense had 2 or more sacks for the 52nd time since 2018, which is the most in NFL history. So, yeah, they went back to playing Steeler defense, and Big Ben didn't really have to do much to make up for that. And we've been saying that's what they need to do. Just play good defense. Offense will do enough, and that's exactly what happened this game.
Yeah, it doesn't get any easier.
One quick thing is that the Titans have 13 turnovers in the last 4 games.
Yikes!
So they need to clean things up. Tannehill and maybe with AJ Brown back, they'll have a little bit more get going as far as the offense goes. I don't know what's going on there, but 13 turnovers last 4 games. That's not a good stat to have.
Yeah, like I was saying, Shobit, your Steelers still have an uphill battle. They're going to travel to Arrowhead to take on the Chiefs next week. So, at this point, the Steelers need to probably win out. The Titans take on the 49ers at home next week. So a couple of big marquee matchups to keep an eye out for next week. Let's take it to the toilet bowl part 1 this week. The Texans were at the Jaguars. For the first time all year, the Jaguars were being favored by 5 points. We were on this podcast saying, what the fuck? That did not make any sense. I don't care that Urban Meyer got fired. Yes, that should help them, but in no world did the Jaguars deserve 5 points, even though they were at home. And this was literally the epitome of that. The funniest, matchup, the way that the universe works and how this storyline came about. You have the number 1 pick in the draft, the best quarterback coming out, the next, heir apparent to the Andrew Lucks, the Peyton Mannings, versus a rookie quarterback that nobody had heard of that got forced into the fire. And wouldn't you know it, the guy that nobody had heard of outdueled the guy that everybody had heard of. I mean, maybe not statistically and everything else, but the way the game went, 30-16, the Texans win on the road. They cover the 4.5-point spread. The over 39.5 hits. I mean, fire as many people as you want, but the Jaguars just keep playing pretty bad.
Yeah, they really do. One thing that they did differently, which they haven't done since like week 5 or 6, is gave James Robinson the ball. So it looks like that change definitely is related to Urban Meyer not being the head coach anymore. So James Robinson, 18 carries, 75 yards, 1 touchdown. That looks like that is the plan moving forward, I would say. And then on the other side, the Texans, Brandon Cooks, 2 touchdowns, man. Like, what I didn't see that coming, because like I feel like he's been an inconsistent player. Sometimes he gives you 10 plus points, sometimes doesn't. And now to see Cooks first week of the playoffs, I mean that broke my heart and on my bench. But I think the key to victory for this game was the Texans special teams. Scores a 90-yard touchdown. I think it was Tremon Smith gets a 98-yard kick return for a touchdown. Just kind of great way to start the game, and the Jaguars really didn't have any answer for the Texans.
Yeah, I also don't have any many answers. You guys pretty much covered everything. The only thing is, Trevor Lawrence sucks. He hasn't thrown a touchdown in 7 games now. Like, what the hell?
You didn't throw a touchdown against the Texans.
No.
Your best opportunity. How does that not happen?
I'm not too. I'll gladly take number 2 overall pick over number 1 overall pick right now, and they both suck. And they both are garbage.
I'll take Davis Mills. Give me Davis Mills over Trevor Lawrence. Who the fuck thought they'd be hearing that 15 weeks into the NFL season? It's just bad. I guess, silver lining is James Robinson. Let's start giving this guy the ball more. Let's make him the focal point. Let's build play action off of handing that dude the ball 20 plus times, right? At least you got to start somewhere. And right now it's not starting with Trevor Lawrence. That's not where they need to start. So the Jaguars take on the Jets next week. So it is a winnable game for them. If Trevor Lawrence couldn't throw a touchdown pass against the Texans, I mean, I don't know what makes us believe he's going to throw a touchdown pass against the Jets, but the Jets' pass defense is pretty bad. So,
real quick, James Robinson now surpassed Leonard Fournette for the 3rd most rushing touchdowns in Jaguars history. No, Jaguars in their first 2 seasons.
Okay, I was going to say that's pretty quick.
Yeah. I was like, that's a lot of touchdowns, but okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I wonder, it's such a weird situation with them, but like with James Robinson, like that he should be the RB1, but with Etienne next year, Etienne, like how is that going to play off? I don't even know.
Yeah, it's going to be like, dude, they're totally different running backs. They can utilize them both. Like,
it's a disaster for fantasy owners, but
it's a disaster for fantasy owners. But one's going to be passed down, one's going to be running it. It'll be good for them.
The good thing is they're both good. So that's the 2 best weapons on their entire offense right now as it stands, right? So build around that. And we've seen how other teams can be successful being like running back dependent and running back heavy. So at least they have building blocks, and you still have this quarterback who you envision being good somewhere down the road.
And he can run too.
Yeah. So Texans play the Chargers next week. So, tough test for them. Like I mentioned, Jags Jets Toilet Bowl 2.0 next week. So can't wait to watch that one. This next game on the board was a battle of 2 7-6 teams. The Bengals were at the Broncos this week. Broncos came in 3-point favorites at home, but the Bengals win this ugly game, 15-10 final on the road, cover the 3-point dog spread, under 44. Bengals are now 8-6. They're sitting in the wild card contention. Broncos are in the hunt, but playoffs are slowly slipping away for Denver. Not a pretty game. I mean, we thought maybe there would be more points from the Bengals side, but there was a ton of running. A ton of punting, a ton of field goals. What did you guys see?
Yeah, I mean, the points from the Bengals side was definitely low, but the what we predicted the game to go down went exactly like that, right? The Bengals scored on a deep pass. That's where the weaknesses were. They had to do that. That's their forte. That's what the Bengals do. And that's what the Broncos can't do. So they were relied on their run. They did the same thing, the same old, like every other game. Split the carry between the running backs. Receivers don't get anything. Tim Patrick had 3 catches. That led the receiving core, and the tight ends took the work. Like, you couldn't have predicted this to go any other way, right? Like, both teams played exactly how they play. Just Bengals didn't score like an additional touchdown. But, yeah, this is the Bengals the Broncos in a nutshell, right? Like, when they're forced to do a little bit more to protect the end zones, they kind of crumble when it's against like a high-powered offense.
Yeah, they kudos to the Bengals. Their defense kept the Broncos to only 33 points of offense in the first half. So
33 yards of offense.
Oh, yeah, 33 yards. I'm messing up all over the place today. 33 yards of offense, and so that's solid performance. I think the score was 6-3 in the first half, so low scoring affair. But the Bengals find a way. I think it was a 58-yard or 56-yard touchdown pass to Tyler Boyd to get the job done, and then the Broncos, Teddy Bridgewater goes out, and Drew Lock comes in. They had a chance to win the game with the touchdown, and Drew Lock he's just not that quarterback to be able to do that. I mean, we've talked about Teddy's woes, but Drew Lock he's got more woes. He's definitely has a lot more woes than Teddy does, and so but that defense is still good. They just can't get the ball rolling on the offensive side. So I mean, that's where the Broncos messed up.
Yeah, another thing to add is, like, since 2019, since they got a new since Vic Fangio, since he started coming to he had a role on the team. The Broncos are 2-24 when trailing after 3 quarters, and that's also because of the quarterbacks. They don't have quarterbacks built to come from behind. So this is the result. You can play as good of a defense as you want, but if you can't make the points, then you can't win the game.
Yeah, unfortunate for Teddy to go down the way he did, even though they weren't really effective with him in the game while he was playing. But glad to see that he's actually good and things are okay with him. But yeah, Drew Lock's not the answer. We've known this. That's why he's the backup. That's why Teddy won the job over Drew Lock. So, it's a lose-lose situation for them because Teddy doesn't quite give you the aerial attack that you need. And Drew Lock's just incredibly erratic and inaccurate. And so, the Broncos, it's tough for them because I see so many possibilities and potentials in terms of the receivers, the running backs, but the quarterback is just not the right quarterback there. And so it makes it tough, especially when their defense is also pretty good. So the Broncos seem like a team that, one franchise quarterback away from, building something special again. So it'll be interesting for them. They're 7-7. They're still not technically out of it, but it's getting harder and harder for them. They take on the Raiders in Las Vegas next week. The Bengals are home against the Ravens, so big divisional matchup there. Big playoff implications.
Real quick, I feel like we need to shout out the kickers because we never really point out the kickers in this podcast as much. But McPherson had a 58-yarder field goal, 58, and that ties the franchise record for Cincinnati Bengals. So, man, he continues.
Is he a free agent next year? Because
for the Vikings. I doubt that.
Yeah, he can come to the Vikings and literally just never make a field goal again. It wouldn't surprise me. And I feel like Justin Tucker could come to the Vikings and miss every kick.
If Justin Tucker comes to the Vikings and misses, I'll just stop watching football at that point because then I have no hope ever. Like, that just solidifies it.
I mean, so Justin Tucker is the number 1 most accurate kicker of all time, right? So the number 2 most accurate kicker of all time already came to the Vikings and sucked. So I mean,
he was actually number 1. He was number 1 before he came to the Vikings, and then he came to the Vikings, and then he dropped.
And he's not even in the top 5 anymore. It's just sad. Dan Bailey was literally one of the best kickers of all time. But anyways, so it's going to be interesting for the Broncos. They got the Raiders. The Bengals have the Ravens. Let's take it over to the 49ers here in San Francisco. They were hosting the Atlanta Falcons in a game that the 49ers expected to win. They were favored by 9.5, and they took care of business. 31-13 final, win at home, under 46.5 hits. 49ers are now 8-6. They're solidifying a wild card spot. With every week that passes by, they look scarier and scarier. Elijah Mitchell still wasn't healthy. Just Jeff Wilson got the job done there, running the ball really well. Falcons are now 6-8. Struggling like they've been struggling all year. They just don't have enough weapons. They're just not putting up enough points, and their defense isn't stopping anybody. So a win the 49ers had to have, and they took care of business.
Yeah, Garoppolo played a solid game, and it was just complemented by the running attack, which the 49ers instilled upon the Falcons. It's the 49ers are such a different team than what they started out with. They started 3-5 and now at 8-6. I mean, they've really solidified what that offense is like. We had a conversation like, what are the 49ers identity? And now we know, and it's working out for them. They're able to score with their running game, and then Garoppolo just does the right things. The Falcons, on the other hand, they suck. they're bad. Falcons ran 13 plays from the 10-yard line or closer without scoring a touchdown. So, if you get you're there, they were stopped at the one, I think a couple of times. So you're there, you have the chance to score, and you just don't get the points. You're just not gonna win. Falcons just need to regroup and start over.
It's time to just roll it up, throw it in the trash, and start over fresh next year. And then play spoiler for the rest of the year this year. But on the other side, a lot of good things to be talked about. Deebo Samuel. No other wide receiver in the Super Bowl era has more than 4 rushing touchdowns in a season. This dude's got 7 straight games. 7 straight games of rushing touchdowns.
How many total carries has he even had in 7 games to constitute 7 rushing touchdowns?
I would say less than 50. Less than 50, probably.
Yeah, probably way less, right? I mean, that's
so
insane.
He's efficient. Yeah, he has the highest yards per attempt within scoring a touchdown in the league by far. And the next person is probably used to be Cordero Patterson, but not anymore. Kyle Pitts, something to talk about. He's definitely on the incline. If there's any slimmer of hope for that team to do anything, it rides on the shoulders of Kyle Pitts, Russell Gage, and Cordero Patterson. There's really nobody else. Hayden Hurst, there was a lot of talk preseason about how he was like a recovering drug addict and he had this like crazy few days story. But yeah, a lot of that stuff is, I'm happy for him and everything, but it has not translated over to the field. The only person getting targets is Gates and Pitts and Patterson. So as from a fantasy standpoint, you would probably continue to start those guys. Russell Gage is becoming more and more of a start-worthy player. I wouldn't mind starting him in my flex over someone like, let's say Adam Thielen comes back next week. I might dabble depending on the matchup, whether it's Gage or Thielen. So, just some opportunities there. And then one other thing about Garoppolo is this is what you see in a Super Bowl winning team, right? You see good defenses, just these Swiss Army knife players everywhere. And then you have a quarterback that doesn't make mistakes and just efficient, right? Like these are the Trent Dilfers of the Ravens years. These are the Rich Gannons of the Raiders years. Like I'm envisioning the 49ers winning the Super Bowl if they continue to play like this.
Yeah, they literally are plug and play at the running back. We've talked about it all year. That's literally their forte. Go ahead.
Yeah. Jeff Wilson Jr., remember how almost every podcast I talk about how the Falcons don't allow a 100-yard rusher, and they haven't since 2 years ago? Well, Jeff Wilson Jr. just broke that record. So,
yeah, sometimes you have to go against the grain and start guys who statistically are not supposed to do well. Yeah. I wasn't one of those guys. I put him on my bench like the stats told me to do, and he had a good game. So.
But you also had somebody good to start, right? Like it's not like you
sucked a bunch of ass. Ramondre Stevenson.
You can't blame yourself for that. That's a good move. It just didn't work out.
Yeah. No, I'm happy for Wilson. He had a couple of games when Mitchell was hurt, when he wasn't quite getting the same success, and they took him down. They took him out on passing situations. So for him to be as good as he was on the ground, good for him. Hopefully they get Mitchell back because that just makes them that much scarier. Kittle's still there. He didn't even have to have as crazy of a game, even though he still had a good game. So, yeah, that team is scary. You do not want to play that football team right now. They're clicking on all cylinders. And as long as Garoppolo is protecting the football, they are a force to be reckoned with. I didn't actually, for whatever reason, look. Okay, so the 49ers are actually going to take on the Titans on Thursday night this week. So a big game in Tennessee for the 49ers.
So I don't know if Mitchell will be back by then. That's a little close call there.
Yeah. It'll be a quick turnaround, so we'll see. The Falcons are at home against the Detroit Lions, so if they wanted to bounce back, there's an opportunity there. That takes us to the next game on the board, guys, at the Baltimore Ravens, where the Packers traveled, came there on the road, and what a wild one. We'll definitely talk about the ending here shortly, but 31-30, the Packers win by 1 point. The Baltimore Ravens cover the 6.5-point dog spread at home, over 43.5 hits. This game was literally decided by 1 point and, if you will, decided by the coach's decision. So, I don't know. What do you guys want to talk about first? There's a lot to unwrap here.
Tyler Huntley, man, this guy, he's basically Lamar Jackson. And he throws the ball well as well, right? Like he can do it with his legs, he can do it with his arm, and he led them to a comeback. I mean, they were down by 8, or down by 7, 8-yard touchdown to pull the Ravens within 1. And so that's they were able to do what they normally do, which is run the ball well. And then, Tyler Huntley is able to, if you have guys like Mark Andrews in the red zone, who gives you 2 touchdowns and just a great red zone threat. So kudos to the Ravens to be able to be competitive against the Packers, who for me was I was looking at them as probably the best team in the NFC, and being able to compete with them. That's got to be a good sign for the Ravens. But yeah, man, that ending though, I'm not really sure what's going on there. Back-to-back games where you decide to go for 2 to win instead of taking the extra point, letting your team go out on offense. And not, for me, maybe it's just a fear of like Aaron Rodgers with 46 seconds left. Like you don't give the ball to Aaron Rodgers. But
oh my God, I'm sick.
It still doesn't make sense. It still doesn't make sense.
You're right.
So this argument, this can make sense. There are instances where I 100% agree with going for 2 to win the game, right? Let's say there wasn't 42 seconds left on the clock. Let's say there was 22 seconds left on the clock. If there was 22 seconds left on the clock, go for 2. I don't give a shit. If you're wanting to be ballsy because you know you have a backup quarterback, go for 2, whatever. I still don't agree with that, but it makes more sense with less time, because you getting the 2 actually with 22 seconds left means there's a really high chance you won that game. You getting the 2-point conversion with 42 seconds left and a timeout for the Packers doesn't mean jack shit. So why are you going for 2? I'm infuriated at that decision, because whether you get the 2 or you get the 1, the Packers are still going to try to go for the field goal, right? Their goal, regardless, is going to be the same. The only time their goal doesn't become the same is if you don't get the 2, then you literally lose the game. So it just was a fucking awful decision. I heard, I read a report saying that like Harbaugh asked the team and they were the ones that wanted to go for it. So in the moment, the team clearly wasn't thinking situationally. So I still think it's dumb on Harbaugh for not being like, guys, there's still 42 seconds left on the clock. It's not like 12 seconds left where a 2-point conversion wins the game. It wasn't going to win anything. Rodgers would have still drove down and got them into field goal range. So it was a horrible call from John Harbaugh. And I love that dude. I give him the benefit of the doubt, 9.5 times out of 10, but that was a fucking awful decision.
Yeah, it reminds me of the game when they played, I think, a Sunday night against the Chiefs, and Lamar Jackson it was like 4th and 1, and he asked Lamar Jackson, "Do you want to go for it?" And he says, "Yes, let's go for it." And Lamar Jackson runs the ball to get the first down. So it's maybe that same sort of mentality. If you hit it, if you're right, then it just builds that morale for.
I think it's a cop out.
It doesn't. I don't think it does anything.
Hold on. You guys have said plenty of things about this. I think it's a cop out. I don't think asking that which player is going to say, no, I don't want to go for it, right? When are they ever going to say that? Every player's going to want to be like, yeah, let's go for it, coach. Especially if your coach asks you, which player's going to be like, no, coach, I don't want to go. They're never going to say that, ever. So that's a cop-out move by the coach to put the responsibility on the player. Why don't you be a coach and make the decision? You've watched the game from the sideline the whole time. Yeah, I get it. The morale and everything, I get it. It's like a team win. I get it. But it's you got to be a parent at some point. You can't just let the kids make all the decisions. This was one that I agree with everything you guys have said completely. Although I am a lot more conservative than you guys are about these type of decisions, because I just trust my own team on both ends of the football a lot more. But that being said, this was outrageous, right? How many times are they going to keep doing this? This guy and Chargers coach, how often are you just going to go with numbers and not go with instincts? When does that come into play? How much longer are you going to lose the next game too because you want to do something similar? At what point do you trust your team and make a decision that you should be making as a coach and not just letting your star? Well, at this moment, he was a star quarterback, because right at that moment, it didn't look like it was Lamar. He actually played better than Lamar has played for the last 6 weeks. So I get that, putting giving the players the opportunity, but which player is ever going to say no? So I think this was so many things went wrong here. So many things went wrong.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think he, in that situation, wanted to go for the win, but he was not thinking clearly, right? Let's think about all of the things. Their defense isn't good. The Ravens' defense is not good. So, and you have arguably the best quarterback of all time, if not one of the best quarterbacks of all time, with 40 plus seconds and an entire timeout. We've seen him do so much more with so much less. So there's no world where, even if you get the 2-point conversion, even if that goes right, It doesn't mean anything. Yes, it puts a eensy bit more pressure on the Packers from being tied to being down 1 to where you're forced to actually but still in the grand scheme of things, there's not enough benefit on the
there's more
upside
to lose.
for it to be worth
There's
it.
more
Yeah,
risk,
100%.
there's less benefit. And he just went with the high risk move, and like this is the outcome of that.
Take 20 seconds off the clock, and I'm okay with them going for 2 because getting the 2 wins the game. But getting the 2 with 42 seconds does nothing. So, yeah, shove it.
The other thing is, like, with the AFC North being so close and the Bengals right there, the Steelers are still there, Browns are also there. It's such a risky move to try to go for that win and back to back, because now the Ravens are tied with the Bengals for first place, right? So it seems like you should let – you're going to lose if you don't get the conversion. That should be enough for you to say, okay, we're going to take it to overtime and at least let our if they get the ball first, we'll let our defense go out there. If we get the ball first, score a touchdown, and you have Justin Tucker that can at least get you 3 points if you get to the field goal range. So it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. One last thing on that. And that exact situation, right? Just think about situationally. If the Packers get the ball in overtime with 10 minutes left starting out, to me, at least, there's not that same sense of urgency. Like, they don't have to score that drive. Yes, if they score, they win, but they don't have to, right? Versus if they get the ball with 42 seconds left and it's a tie game, they're literally having to, or if they get the 2-point conversion, have to go down and kick a field goal. So, like, there's more sense of urgency when they get the ball with 42 seconds versus them tying the game, going to overtime, and even if the Packers get the ball first. So, in like 14 million scenarios, as Dr. Strange would say, there is not a single one that this decision made sense. So, I'm sorry, but this is fucking awful. Like, that one loss right there is John Harbaugh's fault. So,
one last thing. As much as we're afraid of Aaron Rodgers making these last second touchdowns, people should be equally as afraid Justin Tucker's on the other side of the game, right? So I'm just very upset that they don't give the best kicker of all time a chance. All he needed was a chance, because the chances Justin Tucker makes a field goal is higher than Aaron Rodgers throwing a touchdown in the end zone by far. So it's just a lot of questions in my head right now.
Yeah, Ravens, like you mentioned, Shovit, because they lost now, they're taking on the Bengals next week at Cincinnati, tied for first place in that division. So a loss there, all of a sudden, the Ravens' divisional hopes are slowly slipping away. So they put themselves in that situation, and the Packers take on the Browns here in Green Bay next week. Packers are, they're first in the NFC right now, so they're solidifying that number 1 seed, and if they can beat the Browns, I mean, they're looking really, really pretty for that first round bye. That takes us to Sunday Night Football, and man, this was a crazy game. The Saints were at the Buccaneers. We remember this matchup for earlier in the season where Tom Brady had probably statistically his worst game of the season. Were we going to see a repeat in Tampa Bay, or was Tom Brady going to have their number after playing them for a second time? They scored 0 points. The final score was 9-0. The Saints won on the road in Tampa Bay, shut out Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. They cover an 11-point dog spread and win outright under 45.5 hits. My God, that was an impressive-ass defensive performance from the Saints.
Yeah, exactly. Impressive defensive performance. Also, though, the Tom Brady had no one to throw it to, right? No Godwin. I think Evans got hurt as well. You don't have Antonio Brown. You're left with guys, and Perriman is not even playing, who was kind of taking on that wide receiver 3 role. And you saw these throws from Tom Brady, these deep throws that were really not on target. And there were also deep throws to Gronkowski, which didn't. I was like, why is he overthrowing him? Like, why is he even one-on-one to Gronkowski nowadays? I just don't think that you have that strong of a chance as you did back when you were with the Patriots. And there were some drops by him as well. So yeah, the Saints, man, like, looks like they just have Tom Brady's numbers and are able to prevent him from having a good game.
All three of us were, we all said the Buccaneers are probably going to win this game. Sweetcar was even like, I've never been so sure, all of that. And then remember, I always like to play like what the losing team may have to do to win this game. And that's what they did. He got sacked 3 times in the first half, which is the most times he's been sacked since week 5 of 2019. Like, the Saints just came out to say that I'm not going to give Tom Brady time to throw. Like, this stat doesn't even speak about the receivers, really. This is just more about, this isn't so much about not having the right receivers, because in the first half, they had all these guys, right? Like Godwin did his thing for a while. Evans was there. So, and then he still has Gronk, he still has Fournette. At this moment, when all this was happening, he still had his weapons. So he was getting pressured early and on. And then once you start figuring out how to avoid those pressures, he started losing those players one by one. And then you have to reteach a new guy how to do these routes that these other guys were doing. And at that point, it was a lost cause, because we've seen what the Saints have done to the Tampa Bay, specifically Tom Brady, when he's been down. They just they played just lights out. So it was one of those games. It's one of those.
Yeah. Tom Brady tried to run the ball to get that first down, and he gets that sack. And it was such like exactly what would happen in Madden is what happened. The fumble, and then the Saints get the ball back, and it was sad to see.
Yeah, turnovers. Obviously, you don't have the same chemistry that you have with, Godwin, Evans, and Brown, and company, right? This is an interesting perspective, though, because a lot of Tom Brady's throws and the plays that he's running are all like predetermined. So he's really, it's all about timing. There's a lot of timing, and like the way he throws those over the top routes, those guys, it's really, really timing based, right? We're just, let's play comparison wise. You give a same random group of array of quarterbacks to like an Aaron Rodgers. Oftentimes than not, he's going to have better success because he's better at improvising, right? Tom Brady, we've talked about,
he's also better at everything else, but that's a different
conversation. Yeah, I know. I definitely agree, but that's a conversation for another day. That's kind of what I'm getting at, is Tom Brady is so timing and system and everything oriented that those guys all got hurt. Very, very unfortunate. That doesn't usually always happen, that your top 3 receivers are gone, but at that point, maybe you're the best quarterback of all time. You need to change things up. Maybe you need to be like, all right, guys, we're going to fucking start running like backyard football, because, these timing routes clearly aren't working because you guys haven't even been on the field long enough for us to get the timing down. So for them to still come away with 0 points, to me, like, that still doesn't sit right with me. I know the injuries were there. Obviously, I get that, but you're at home. You're playing a Saints team that's offense virtually did nothing all game, right?
That you've played before this year, and they didn't change anything as far as offensively goes.
So yeah, I mean, I'm very impressed with the way the Saints have handled the Buccaneers this year, the way the Saints won this game. The Saints are 7-7 now. They gave themselves a really, really great opportunity to win that and steal that 7th seed, because now they won the one game in their schedule we talked about last week was the toughest game they have left. And so now they take on the Dolphins next week. So there's a really good chance for them to go 8-7 if they can beat the Dolphins. And the Buccaneers take on the Panthers next week, so we're not really too worried about them. But they're just really hoping, probably between now and the playoffs, that their players can get right. We already know the Godwin news, which is unfortunate. Initially, they had reported that he was just going to be out for the regular season, but now it looks like he's out for the entire season. So tough for them, but they're going to have to adapt. Luckily, they get Antonio Brown back next week. That is it. Those are all the games. There's a current game going on. The first game on Monday night started at 4:00. The Raiders are in Cleveland taking on the Browns. Browns 7-6, Raiders 6-7. So big game. Currently, there's 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. The Raiders are up 13-7, and the Browns are driving. So there is going to be.
I don't get how Derek Carr can't move the ball against like half of a Browns team, but.
Yeah, I mean, they're so decimated by COVID. It's interesting that this score is so low, especially with the Raiders not being able to score as much. But this game looks like it's going to go down to the wire. There's still 3 more games. The Vikings, Bears are tonight. We have the Seahawks, Rams tomorrow, the Washington football team, and the Eagles tomorrow. So we're going to recap those games, as well as I don't know if we're going to do like a shortened episode or if we're going to just add that into the preview for next week's slate of games in our next episode. We'll figure that out. So stay tuned, but let's jump into it. We want to wrap things up before the next game starts. Studs and duds. Shishok, give us your studs and duds.
Okay. So my stud will have to be Travis Kelce, because we finally got to see Kelce's full potential, like why people drafted him. All of that was up for grabs for a long time, and he kind of just showed us that he's back. And but he's also back on the COVID list now. So we'll see how long that keeps him out. Hopefully not for too long. My dud is going to have to be Michael Pittman. It's a product of game script. There were some opportunities where he got overthrown. He could have had an easy touchdown in the first drive. But, studs and duds is a very dynamic field. Sometimes you don't have to be the reason why you're so Dudley. And Michael Pittman getting 5 targets for 7 yards. That's dud worthy on a stat sheet, especially for fantasy owners that did not bench Michael Pittman. That I feel bad for all of you out there. So yeah, those are my studs and my duds.
Shove
Nice.
it, you.
Yeah, so my stud this week is going to be someone who you may not put him as a stud category, but this week I am going to Devontae Parker with 14.8 points, 4 receptions and 68 yards and a touchdown. The reason for for him to be stud is because this week has just been. I know there's still 3 more games left outside of the Raiders and Browns, but it's just been a low scoring fantasy point week. I mean, the like I mentioned, the players that you expect to get points have not been getting you points, and so 14.8 is good enough to be a stud for me for this week, first week of playoffs. My dud is going to be no other than the guy we just talked about, Tom Brady. Man, 246 yards, 1 interception, had a fumble as well. Just couldn't get anything going, and I think the total was 3.4 points or something under 5. So just didn't do 4.76 to be exact. So just didn't do what we're used to seeing from Tom Brady against the Saints, and so you are my dud this week.
Yeah, big playoff time for a lot of people who have Tom Brady, and that's definitely not delivering a playoff type performance. So my stud this week is Mark Andrews. We talked about him already. It was a big tight end week. Kelsey and Andrews popped off. Andrews, 10 catches, 136 yards, 2 touchdowns, 30.6 fantasy points, single-handedly giving me hope and a glimmer of life. My dud was Michael Carter. That just Robert Saleh said he was going to get a significant role. 8 carries, 18 yards, 1 catch, 2 yards, 2.5 points. Started in 2 fantasy leagues in the playoffs, only to get me a combined 5 points. So you are my dud, Michael Carter. Do more better. Shove it. End the note and the episode off with what we have this week for waivers.
Yeah, we've got a pretty good amount of waivers right now. So first up, we've got Craig Reynolds for the Detroit Lions, who had a great game last week. No Williams, no Swift, and looks like Craig Reynolds is the one that's gonna be that RB1 if those guys are out. So you might.
Well, Williams is back, so just be wary of
Williams,
what he could do. Yeah, you got just keep track of how the practices go.
Next guy we have on here is also due to an injury, Ronald Jones, with Leonard Fournette hurting his hamstring. So something to kind of I think it's not as serious as it may have seemed, but just someone to stash and just monitor throughout the week. The next guy is from the running back standpoint is Duke Johnson. So we saw what he did last week with the Dolphins. Looks like Matt Gaskin's not going to get the carries we expected, so Duke Johnson's should be the guy there. From a wide receiver standpoint, we've got the return of Antonio Brown. If some of you guys have dropped Antonio Brown due to his suspension and injuries, Tom Brady needs him. He's Antonio Brown.
Yeah. He's a must start freaking wide receiver 1 next week.
Oh yeah.
Oh, for sure.
He's getting like 14 targets.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got AJ Brown. He's also coming back. Julio Jones is not the answer. No one else is the answer. AJ Brown should be the only guy that's getting the targets there, right? Inshallah. There you go. Keeping it to the staying with the wide receiver core, we've got the 2 Lions receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown and Josh Reynolds. I think that Amon-Ra St. Brown gets a better. We'll get the better numbers there and targets. But Josh Reynolds is there too. You know, he was moved up from the Titans, went to the Lions, and he's been performing fairly well ever since this.
Didn't he also play for the Rams? And he used to play with Jared Goff, so he's got some.
Yeah, he was the Rams. I didn't even know he was on the Titans. How long was he on the Titans?
I think the start of this year he was on Titans. Yeah. And then they dropped him even after all those injuries. So I'm not sure what they were doing there. And then so we've got last guy we got on here is Christian Kirk for receiver. So like we mentioned with
Rondale Moore,
Hopkins
and Rondale Moore out, AJ Green and Christian Kirk are going to be wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2. So you got to go out and get him. from a QB standpoint, we've got two quarterbacks. Both are very similar in how they play. One's probably better than the other. Tyler Huntley for the Ravens. You got to go out and get him. He can do it with his legs.
Dude,
as long as Lamar's not going to be back, yeah.
I would love to start Huntley right now. I've seen 3 games. That's enough sample size to see that he knows how to run the ball.
Yep.
And that's enough for me to – and he knows how to throw to Andrews. What more do you want? That's 2 touchdowns a game, and then that's possibly 100 yards rushing game. That's serious fantasy numbers.
Yep. You got to go out and grab him. And then Cam Newton, he's still – he seems like he can't throw the ball.
I hope you don't go out and grab him.
But
if you're already out of the playoffs and you want to have some fun, go out and get Cam Newton.
Yeah. Don't torture yourself with him in the playoffs. There's got to be better opportunities. But, I mean, the upside with rushing is always there. So definitely.
That's my list. That's all I've got this week. We'll update more as news comes out.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got a lot of games. Another game that's wrapping up. The Browns took the lead, guys, 14-13. Browns are up with 3:40 left. So the Raiders are trying to get into field goal range and try to win this game on a comeback now all of a sudden. So we'll see. And we got the Vikings Bears here coming up tonight. We have a lot of fantasy implications, a lot of, emotional favorite team implications. So a lot on the line here with our emotions. And then obviously 2 more games tomorrow. So a lot more information to get out to you guys. We'll be back maybe Thursday, I would say. Thursday for our next episode. Give us a follow at Only Playbook on Twitter and turn your notifications on if you want all of the latest injury information. You guys got anything else?
I think that's good.
Nope. Just KJ Osborne's going to get 2 touchdowns today.
We'll see, man. We'll see. I need 30 from Justin Jefferson. So we will see.
30 from Dalvin Cook. Let's go.
Yeah, we all need different things. This is what it's all about, baby. All rooting for the same team. We're doing different things. So thank you guys for tuning in. We're the Only Playbook. We will see you guys on Thursday.